All right, so guys, welcome back, and again for the continuation of the previous lesson. When we were playing the timeline, you just noticed that in the previous lesson, the particles weren't going to follow up with the fluids, so it was just a kind of a mistake that I did, and I think so. First of all, we need to select the fluids, and then we need to select the particles, and then we have to go and let's say assign to the selected. Okay, if in case you don't wish to recall the order of the selection, you can go to the windows and can go to the relationship editors and can select the dynamic relationships, and under here you can just going to select the rising particles and give click to the fluids. So right in front of me there isn't any linking of the particles with the fluid. So if you're going to play the timeline, you may could see that the particles are not following any motions and they're just emitting again from the object as we saw in the previous lesson. So if I can click the particles and click the rising fluid shape, which is here acting as a field, now you can see that there is a connection. And now if you're going to play the timeline, you see that the particles are obviously started rising. But there are so many things which we need to do because with the horrible look, I can't say that there is any energy. It's like a disaster. All right, so coming back, the most important thing is the stabilizations of the reaction. As you can see that the particles are not getting stable. They are just, moving and just they're getting crazy. And the second important thing is that they have just crossed the fluid containers. So there is no more control of the fluid to the particles. So no doubt the velocity field is working, but the velocity field is highly energetic and it is pushing the particles, outside the barriers and the boundaries of the fluid container. So what do we need to do in that case? We first of all need to make the velocity of the own particles to the zero. So how are we going to do that? The simple answer is that you're going to select the particles under the shape node. There is something called the conserve, which is technically speaking the attribute of the velocity per frame. And if you're going to dip the value, the velocity per frame will going to get dipped. So I can put that thing to the 0.1 or and make it go for the 0 as well. So now if I'm going to play the timeline, you can see that the particles are now completely under the control and they are not trying to escape out the container. However, they will going to try to escape, but still they don't have their own energy field, so they will like to keep them with the motion of the fluids. I do acknowledge that the look and feel is not like that much great. So first of all, now just start concentrating about the look and feel. So press the Control A. Here we do have the point particles. First of all, I'm gonna reduce the size to the 1, and just remember that we are just showing them for the display purpose only. The rendering of the particles will be taken care dedicatedly in a separate lesson, because as told you in the beginning also, like some of us may also would like to go for the hardware rendering of the particles. So for that, this is very important lesson. So again, I can click over here, which is the multi-sample anti-aliasing, which is a very powerful feature in the Viewport 2.0. And I'm just gonna go up, and instead of 8, we can bring them up down to the 4 only. That we're gonna solve my purpose. All right. So this is basically the particle. This is a point particle. So as I go close to them, they're gonna start losing up their volumes. And that's the reason why I just prefer the software rendering. This one of the reason you could say. But again, now just come back to the particle shape node. First of all, I need to add the life to them, because at this point of time they are living forever like the god particles, which I don't want. So let this particle to die. So the lifespan should gonna go for the random, and let's say 1.25, and the life random should be 0.5. So I think so between 0.75 to 1.75 the particle should start getting die. And of course, with this, you also need to provide a change in the opacity as well as in the color of the particles, because the particles are not showing any effect of the age. So what are we going to do in that case? First of all, go down. There's something called the per particle array attributes. We're first going to concentrate on the opacity. Let's say we're going to add the add per particle attributes, and add per particle and add attribute, and let's say right click, we're going to create the ramp, and okay, so click that up. Let me just gonna name that up, let's say opacity, and of course I don't need this. Oh, it just gone away. We just don't need that what we used to call them color entry list. I'm sorry. The interpolation type will have to set to be exponential down because I just want the particles to die quickly. So here you can see that with the refresh of the scene, now you can start noticing there's a change inside the behavior of the particles. Now they have started supporting the they're like dying, and they're also supporting the opacity. And now the next thing would be the color. Since I just cannot leave them to be just like this way, I just need the sublet inside the color as well. So for that, we'll need to go to the color sections, and let's say click the add per particle attribute. And there's something called RGBPP, and we're going to create the ramp. If we just play the timeline by default, you'll can notice that, oh, there isn't any color. Could be. Okay, no problem. We can go and can just start tweaking. Oh, because the RAM in the 2016 like in this way. In the earlier version of the Maya, they were showing in the like red, green, blue, these three beautiful colors. Okay, no problem. So we'll start adding colors to it. So that section I would like to leave upon you completely. I would like to prefer some, the dark colors. And with the first color only, you can see the reaction is taking very good. And of course, we're going to add a little bit more subtlety to that. Let's say we're going to change the color to that and increase them up, so that we're also going to add a little bit cyan impact. For the beginning of this, we're also going to leave to somewhere like this. All right, but you could see that the info is turning completely towards the flat. There isn't any interest. So we make it do in that way also, so that in the beginning part at least, we should have some bright color impact, and over here we should have some different impact. All right, so that should gonna add some depth to the reaction. So there will going to be a lot of change inside this, so don't worry regarding this. Some few more settings I need to add just to add some more crispy result to the particles. Well, you can just turn up the noise frequency to the full and just start playing up with the noise. Okay, so this will be adding a little bit more noise to the colors. And I think so we can bring back the noise frequency to somewhere around this. So with that, you'll start noticing a kind of a change and a crispiness inside the reaction. So I highly recommend you go with this. Okay, this is very, very important. And you also can increase them. You can start playing with the colors. All right, but you also going to notice that once you are increasing the value of this, the whole colors are getting completely brighter. This is not actually the fault. These are the hardware render particles, so they are taking the advantage in that way. But we're going to control them up. That's not an issue. If you're going to see, there is something interesting called the color balance. This is controlling the overall color gain value of the RAM. So the color gain, we can also adjust it. You can bring them to a little bit more dark. So if you're going to play them, you can see that all those, are very, the bright areas have just, gone away. So I'm still not very happy with the kind of the reaction that I'm getting up, because, if you just can notice that, first of all, we're going to hide the proxy object and bring back the sort group again. Now we're gonna play the timeline, and I'm just also gonna hide that thing. So let's say under the display, we're gonna put them to the none. All right. So now if you're gonna play the timeline, you may could see that the reaction is taking good, but at least in the beginning, I want the streak or the stream of the energy should go pretty much straight, and then after some few frames, there should be some more subtlety, or a kind of uh, vorticity or the swirl inside the particles. But I just don't want them in the beginning. So there are a couple of issues which I am not liking the standard of this reaction. So For that, we need to select the attributes of the fluids and have to play with them. So I think so we're going to do that thing in the next lesson, because that's a little bit more work we need to provide, especially on the density and the velocity sections. So we'll take a pause over here and we'll see you in the next session. Then we're going to discuss about these important attributes. All right. So see you in the next session.